Hi, everybody. I'm Melinda Emerson, Small Biz Lady, America's #1 small business expert. And I'm so excited to welcome you to another edition of the Small Biz Chat podcast. We have an amazing show today. I have 3 guests, and each of them is going to give you a little nugget that's going to help move you further, faster in your business. So we're going to talk about how to add value and scale your business. We're going to talk about how facing adversity can make you a better business owner. And if you're thinking about investing in a franchise, I have a top expert here that's going to share her best strategies. We're going to be speaking with an exit planner who's going to help us all learn how to develop a succession plan. And we're going to talk with a serial entrepreneur who's going to share his personal journey that led him to make a change at the top and what that can mean for all of us in our businesses. And we have a franchise expert here that's going to let you know what you need to know before investing into a franchise. Now, here on the Small Biz Chat podcast, we talk about how to start and grow successful small businesses. And my guests have amazing insight to share from multiple angles. Now, we think of the Small Biz Chat podcast as a peer-to-peer mentoring opportunity for you. So I want you to listen close, take notes, because my guests are going to give you invaluable advice that is going to help you take your business to the next level. Because here at the Small Biz Chat podcast, our mission is to end small business failure. Now, tonight's guests are going to be joining us. But if you want to look at us live, you can watch this show on YouTube Live as well as my Small Biz Lady Facebook page. So if you have a comment or a question, please leave it in the comments. We always want to hear from you. Now, tonight's guests are merger and acquisition expert, Laurie Barkman. She's here to talk about the ins and outs of buying, growing, and selling small businesses. We're also going to be talking to serial entrepreneur and veteran, Zachary Green, and he's here to teach us all about how to become a warrior entrepreneur. And we have franchising expert Rebecca Monet, and she's here to talk to us about the pros and cons of franchising. And I can't wait to learn from all of them. Now it's time for me to introduce my first guest, Laurie Barkman. She's an exit planner and mergers and acquisitions expert. She's the CEO of SmallDotBig. It's a business transition advisory firm helping business owners maximize value, create succession plans, and identify merger and acquisition strategies. She enjoys developing structured plans that empower business owners to live their dreams. For more information, go to small.big.com. Laurie, welcome to the Small Biz Chat podcast.
Thanks, Melinda. It's exciting to be here with this wonderful group. Thanks for having me.
Well, listen, 80% of business owners want to stop working in their businesses in the next 5 to 10 years. But you say that most have not planned for that transition. How can people improve their businesses so they actually have something that they can sell?
That's the $1 million question, or it could be more than $1 million depending on your business. And that's what makes it difficult, but not impossible to solve. It starts really with where they are. I like to talk about where are we today? And it's like holding up a mirror to your business. Do you see where the tripwires are for risks? Do you know which things are lying around in your business that if you said, well, wait a minute, if we just changed a few of these things, the low hanging fruit, if you will, that it could improve value. And then there's the big stuff. And there's 8 different value drivers. I'm happy to talk about any or all of them tonight. But at its core, there's external things that drive value or take away value. And there's internal things that we can control. And what I like to do is work with clients on the things we control. And in summary, it's really how do we create value, help you minimize risk, and transition with success. That's the mission.
All right. So before we get into the 8 things, because I do want you to tell us what they are, tell us, how did you become the business transition Sherpa, if you will?
That moniker came around. I think this really started for me several years ago. I was the CEO of a division of a privately held company. And the entire company, including our group, was acquired by a strategic company. It's Fortune 50. It's a household name. Everybody would know it. And it was a really interesting experience to go through an M&A process from the inside. So I was one of several executives that went through the acquisition, went through the integration, and then on the other side of it, working with the big company and seeing it through. After I left, I worked in private equity for a bit, and then I was on the other side of the deal table. And I guess I figured out that I like doing deals, and I was a deal junkie. But at its core, I have been orbiting entrepreneurs for a very long time. In startups, entrepreneurship in large companies, people who have the entrepreneurial spirit, people who have purchased businesses, acquired businesses, acquisition entrepreneurs, people who have bought franchises. And the common theme throughout, and why I call myself a Sherpa, is it's not about me having the answers. It's about me helping people see what they're not seeing. And there's a funny story too, if we have time for it, about the name of my firm and why I call it SmallDotBig. But it's really about having a different perspective, that aha moment. And that's what I find is one of my superpowers.
Love it. Love it. So why do you think that, 2 out of 10 businesses are not sellable? Like, what is the biggest issue? Is it that businesses are worth a heck of a lot more than they really are? Like what would you say is the biggest reasons why businesses are not sellable?
There's a lot of reasons, as you can imagine. A very common reason is because the business really isn't transferable. Many businesses in our country are what we think of as lifestyle businesses, where maybe it's one or two people. The business is probably in the hundreds of thousands, not millions. And so we can all get our heads around that and think, oh yeah, that's not really a transferable business. But even as a company gets bigger and it hits $1 million threshold in revenue, that's a pretty good threshold to hit. But still, between 1 and 5 million, there can be a perception of risk about transferability in small businesses of around that size. And why is that? Well, in many cases, the business is largely organized around the owner. The owner might be the rainmaker, the person that's really bringing in the majority of the sales. How long has it been since you've taken a vacation? How long is your vacation when you do take one? And are you really checking email or not checking email when you're on vacation? And so that's a good thing to just sort of check in on yourself. I do a business assessment. I offer a business assessment. Hundreds of business owners have taken this assessment. And that is one of the questions. When is the last time you took a vacation? But if you peel back the layers of the onion, what we're really trying to understand is, what are the risks associated in your business, not only about you, but if you have other employees. And that is one of the things, and I just mentioned the 8 drivers is a key aspect. We call it the Switzerland structure, which is about neutrality. And it's not only neutrality for employees, which includes you, but it also includes risks around your suppliers and risks around your customers. Do we have too much customer concentration? Let's say you've got a really profitable business, it's a healthy business, and even if it's north of $1 million, what if more than 60% of your revenue comes from one customer?
Yeah.
And then that customer goes away. Mm-hmm. So those are some examples of transferability risk. And I think it's a big reason why a small percent of companies actually have a transaction. But to your point earlier, Melinda, which is a great point, yeah, a lot of times there's a gap between what the market thinks the business is worth and the owner thinks what the business is worth. Because let's face it, in the private market, it's in the eye of the buyer. Just like when you're buying a house, there's an infinite number of prices that can be set. And so a lot of times there's a disconnect.
All right. So if I want to get started building a business that I can one day sell, what do I need to do to start preparing for my business transition?
The biggest thing is to be clear on what your goals are. If you want to build a business that one day will thrive without you, then you will set the course now. You will create processes. You will document processes. You will probably look for systems and tools to help you streamline. You'll realize that while you are talented, you don't want the business to be orbiting around you and have it all be about you. You want it to be about the team, the process, the product, the service, the brand. And you'll think that way. You'll have a growth mindset. You'll have a mindset towards structural capital, social capital, customer capital, all these things that help make a business more valuable. And it's hard for those who seek the ego and the identity from the business ownership, right? Another question in the survey is, do you own a business or are you a business owner? And there's a nuance there, right? What is that nuance? Well, the nuance is can you be arm's length? If you really have that identity, you absorb that identity, it's harder to let go, isn't it? And that's true just as a human. It's harder to let go, especially when your name is on the door. If you've named it because you are the founder, or perhaps you're next gen and you're Gen 2, Gen 3, whatever it might be. I have a podcast called Succession Stories, and we're coming up on episode 100. And I've talked with so many wonderful people who talk about these challenges. So there's really no one problem that we can say, oh, this is the most common thing. There's also no one solution. And, we just have to take it. Everybody's a snowflake, and that's okay. But there's definitely some patterns that we see.
I like that analogy. Everybody is a snowflake, right? There is individuality out here. But now I know that there's a lot of business owners that want to transition their business to their kids. And let's talk about that, because if you want your kids to run your business, do you make them buy it? Or do you kind of hover around and, micromanage, maybe do an earn out? Like what is the best way that you've seen people transition their business to their family or to their children specifically?
Well, on my show, I've talked to wonderful multi-gen companies. The most exciting example is Generation 10. Just pause for a minute on that.
Wow.
The company was founded in 1767. It's an Applejack brandy company and Laird. And I spoke with a mom and son. So she's Gen 9 and he's Gen 10. And that's a special legacy. And none of the generations truly own the business. They own it for the next generation in a mindset, right? They know they're handing it down. So the mechanics of do they buy it, do they not? I actually didn't ask them those questions. In other company examples, like Highlights Magazine, if any of you are listening or have children, you might know Highlights. I remember it from when I was a kid, and so looked forward to it in the dentist office. The CEO of Highlights is fourth gen, and Ken Johnson, wonderful, wonderful person. And the way he thinks about the legacy of his company is that it's not about him. He's so strong in that culture. He doesn't want to be. And his mindset is it's about the future and really creating a sustainable future thinking organization. And so if that's where you are, if you're Gen 1 and you've launched your company and your vision is to have an organization that's going to thrive without you, and you want to make it a success and you want your children to be part of it, that's your vision, which is great. Your kids might have, one, not the interest, and two, not the skill set. I've had conversations with people on my show, on air, off air, in consulting and talking to clients. Also, I have years of experience in human resource management. It was my undergraduate degree. So I come into all of this with a practicality, right? That it is essentially, it needs to be a fit. If Junior wants that role, but Junior is not qualified, Junior needs to not be in that role. And that's a reality. Sometimes there's a skip generation where we hire in a leader from the outside, help get the next generation ready. So your question of should they buy it, should they not? Again, it depends, because, and I think I also have to sort of acknowledge here that there's tax consequences, estate planning issues, and we really want to consult our advisors. If you work with a wealth advisor and a generational planner for estate planning, that's a really great thing to be doing. If you have a business and you want to maybe be gifting shares to set up trusts, there's all kinds of mechanisms. I am not the expert on that. I can just point you in the right direction. And that's what I'll do tonight. But I think, realistically, again, it comes back to your goals as a company, as a management team, if you have a board, if you have a family advisor board, if it's just you and you're talking to yourself, that's okay. Maybe you're in an organization like Vistage or YPO and you have peers and you know they've done other things. It's great to get advice but when it comes to decision making, get the facts and then put a plan together.
So let's talk about the sell side of a business. So how do you keep the emotion out of the process of selling your business? Because I mean, you might think it's worth $10 million and somebody will come in and offer you $2. And it's like, how do you act like they didn't just call your baby ugly? Do you know what I'm saying? Like,
oh, I know what you're saying. And I've seen it up close and personal. It can be very emotional. That's the benefit of working with someone like myself. I have a client who is a self-acknowledged emotional person. And I knew that coming into the working relationship. And it's kind of like a running joke. He's very humble about that. And he knows that about himself. However, we did have a situation with a buyer where emotions ran high and my client decided to walk away from the opportunity. And there was nothing I could say or do. I think there were some emotions that it's a competitive situation too. And that's the other comment I'll make about emotion is when you're looking to sell your business to a competitor, there's inherent emotions already. So that can also create other dynamics that we need to be well aware of. There's also emotion when it comes to decision-making between family members. There is a situation, I was not part of this, but in the storytelling on my show, one person talked about the deal was ready to be done, ready to be signed, but then, we got to tell grandma. And then when there was the conversation with grandma was like, oh no, that's not happening. And the deal was off. And then eventually grandma passed and then they did a deal that was with that particular entity. But grandma was a driving force, a decision maker who we'll call the economic, decision maker in that situation, but she wasn't consulted early enough in the process.
Right. So doing an end around is not that if you got a difficult family member, you got to talk to them up front, right? Because trying to come to them at the last minute, that's a great way to get the whole thing torpedoed. Interesting. So when it comes to figuring out what your business is worth, I mean, I went to business school too. So it's some multiple of EBITDA, right? Earnings before taxes. But I mean, how do you figure it out? I mean,
that's probably its own session in and of itself, but I'll do my best to summarize. And I think there's a couple different ways to look at it in the non-MBA language. I'll try to do my best here. And your math is right, Melinda. It is very common. One of the things that I start with, and I do valuations. I'm a certified mergers and acquisitions advisor. I do valuations for clients. And it's a great way to get started in a relationship because if we have a gap in what they think it's worth versus what my estimate is, we have to talk about that. And if it's too far apart, then maybe we can't work together. But if it's reasonable, and I think they're reasonable, we're in the ballpark, that's great. The way we do valuations at Stony Hill Advisors, it's a firm that I'm affiliated with for the M&A work that I do. We look at it a couple different ways. Because we're looking at lower middle market companies, privately held companies, they share tax returns with us. We ask for 3 years. We take the financial information that we're given, right? We're not auditing their information. We're not verifying. We're given that information and that's what we're working with. And so we take the 3 years and we try to understand also if there are any expenses that have been one-time expenses. Maybe they're personal, maybe they're business. Maybe they are personal and they are recurring expenses, but they're personal, not business. However, we need to understand that and we need to separate that. Likewise, if we've gotten income or revenue that's one time, well, maybe it's a giant credit that we've gotten either from the government or from a customer situation. So we look for any anomalies. We try to make adjustments in the net income, which is what we call seller discretionary earnings, or the acronym would be SDE. And if there's reasons to do an add back, we look for reasons for an add back. So like I was saying earlier, taking expenses out. So that would make your net income number higher. Or we're going to add money back in because perhaps you are undercharging yourself for rent. And if someone else buys your business, they probably need to pay more for rent. So that would be considered something we would put back in. And so that gets us a adjusted EBITDA number.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of times there's a multiple of EBITDA. There can be a multiple of SDE. There can be a multiple of revenue. Some companies have backlog and they have a pipeline, and there's a variety of ways to look at that. So how do we know what that multiple is? And across those 4 different areas, it's not the same multiplier, as you can imagine. So what we do is we look for comparable sales, just like in real estate. And we have databases and we pull that. We try to find recent comps, let's say within the last 5 years. We try to look at deals that are relatively of the same nature, size, industry, and we plug that back into the model. We also look forward and we say, well, can we do a discount cash flow model? It doesn't work in all businesses. If it's a recurring revenue business that has a high percentage of recurring revenue, then that would make sense to project forward. And then also in this business assessment that I mentioned, where we have some of the intangible value drivers, I look to get a quantifiable measure on that and use that as another data point in my analysis.
That's a lot of technical information. I mean, I do know enough about this to be dangerous, but you just made my head swoon just a little bit. But listen,
sorry.
No. I asked the question, so I deserve to make my head hurt, right? So, but here's the thing I want to do. I want to go to a break, and when we come back, I want to learn more about how you might want to use M&A as a strategy to grow your business so it can become more attractive to sell. I'm Melinda Emerson, the Small Biz Lady. You're watching the SmallBizChat podcast, and we will be right back. Hi, I'm Melinda Emerson, Small Biz Lady, and I want to welcome you to Small Biz Lady University. Our mission here is to end small business failure. So all of the courses here are about 2 things: how to become your own boss or how to make money online. So that's what we do here. So whether you want to learn about email marketing and sales funnels, or you're ready to get started with social media selling, or if you're really just getting started with e-commerce, you might want to jump into our How to Sell and Market Online course. Either way, if you want to learn how to become your own boss and do it well, I have everything you need here at smallbizladyuniversity.com. If you have any questions or have any technical problems getting signed up, just email us at support@melindaemerson.com. Take care. Welcome back to the Small Biz Chat podcast. I'm Melinda Emerson, Small Biz Lady, your host, and I'm back with my guest, Laurie Barkman, and she is talking about how to grow a business you can sell. All right, Laurie, listen, I want to understand, how can someone use a roll-up strategy or a mergers and acquisition strategy to scale up and really add more value to their business so that they can be more attractive for a potential buyer?
At the top level, there's 2 ways to grow: organically and through acquisition. I'm a big fan of organic growth. That's what I've done in my career over and over and over, especially in the marketing side. So I get it. It's fun, it's hard work, and you want to figure it out, especially if you're a startup. That's where you're at. But eventually, your organic growth might flatline. There could be shifts and dynamics in the marketplace that are causing that to happen. There could be internal reasons why that's happening, but a lot of times it's happening. So what are we going to do about it? When you're big enough and we're interested enough to look outside of your business and think about acquisition as a growth strategy, it can be very, very interesting and compelling. The couple of examples from folks who've come on my show, these are not huge companies, right? So your listeners who are thinking, oh, I'm not a big company. How can I afford to do this? Well, I don't think you have to be a $100 million business to buy other businesses. One rule of thumb, just to put it out there, typically what we see is the 5 and 20 rule. If your business is between 5 to 20 times larger than your target, that's about right. If you're the same size as them, that might be tough. Why is that? Well, you got to go get financing. And you're either going to get financing from an SBA lender, a small business loan from the U.S. government is underwriting, or you're going to get a commercial loan from a bank. And so those are small business lending opportunities. Now, what are the bankers going to do? I talk to bankers. I've gotten some pre-qualification letters for businesses that I'm representing for sale. And it's really interesting. Sometimes, a lot of times I should say from their end, what are they looking at? It's the same information that I'm looking at when I'm doing my evaluation. They're doing the same thing, Melinda. What they really care about is a ratio of your cash flow to your debt. And they call it debt service. Is the business going to produce enough cash so that you can pay off your commitments on time? That's the biggest thing they care about. So therefore, the business has to be big enough that you have enough padding. You don't have to take on a lot of risk, because you're also putting your personal collateral up, perhaps, right? Or if you have a house, imagine, right? So you got to really think through those things. But growth through acquisition is really, really important. The other thing about being big enough and being able to take it on, you know what it's about? It's actually about the integration. Integration is the biggest thing. I like to do strategic planning with clients, and especially a client that's big enough to do an acquisition. Guess when we do strategy for the integration? It's not at the closing. It's in the beginning. Right. If you wait to the end to do your strategy on how we're going to integrate, it's really probably not going to go well.
I can see that. So on that note, let's talk about what are some of the common pitfalls of mergers and acquisitions?
Well, from the sell side, we talked about a number of them, that there's a disconnect between the seller's opinion of what the business is worth and what the market is telling them. And another one is readiness. That's a really big one. There's 3 aspects to readiness. We've hit on a number of things tonight, what I'll call business readiness. Is the business ready to sell? Is the owner and the business, are they sell ready? That can be a huge disconnect. Ready to sell versus sell ready. Just let that sink in for a second. We think we're ready to go to market, but hold on, we've got this risk, that risk, this risk. And so as we start to talk to buyers and putting the company out there, what's going to happen? We're going to see a discount in the price. Maybe we want $700K, but you know what? The offers are coming in at $300. Why? Well, we've got retirements happening at the top level. Our business owner is so tied in with the sales process, and we've got a customer concentration list that is making people run the other direction. It can be any number of things. Another derailer is the other owners. The other owners are important. We've got to get them on board, whether they're family or not. They might still have a vote. There's one situation that I was in that the seller was making too much money just in cash flow. He's the single shareholder. And even though he's in his 70s and he has no succession plan, he wanted to keep going because selling the business wouldn't necessarily replace his cash flow and his lifestyle. And so that's another reason. And what is he doing? Well, he's just holding on. And he's at this point probably 75.
Now, you would think somebody like that would have planned for retirement so they wouldn't feel like they still had to run their business because they liked making whatever a month. Now, obviously, a transaction intermediary is very helpful for dealing with some of this stuff or having some of these hard conversations, right?
Absolutely. We provide a sense of grounding. For me, one of my things is clarity. A lot of times business owners just feel that they're running, circles day to day. They're so involved day to day. It's hard for them to think about the future, but they know it's really important and they know they should. They also are not familiar with the process. And for many business owners, this is the only time, this is the one transaction. And the folks who try to go on their own many times end up turning to us and saying, this did not go well. I need help. Why? Because emotions can get in the way. Someone is telling them their baby is ugly, right? Or they really need to focus on the day-to-day. And it's difficult to run an M&A process and run your business. And we also have the expertise of doing this and doing this for 15 years. And we do see a lot of things when they go wrong, and we see things when they go right. And we can provide, I think, not only the clarity around the process for the business readiness, but also the personal readiness and helping them get organized financially. We tend to have pretty solid Rolodexes And I know for me, one of the things I really bring to the table for my clients is the introductions to other professionals who can help them in a way that they need. And I've got the bat phone, and these people pick up. And that's a big thing. Like, you can't just, get a law firm partner on the phone like some of us can if we have those types of relationships.
Sure. Well, you seem like I could keep talking to you about this stuff all night, but we've got to stop here. But I've got my last question for you is, what is the best piece of business advice anyone has ever given you?
I think that it's one of my early mentors. And he basically said, it doesn't matter if people are reporting to you or not. You need to be able to influence without authority and have the confidence to do that. And I've really taken that with me throughout my career. And it's helped a lot with client work because I don't manage them, right? They are my boss, but I'm helping to influence a direction in a process.
Love it. Love it. Well, thank you so much, Laurie. You have given us so much valuable insight on how to build value in a business, and it has just been invaluable. When we come back, we're going to be talking about how you can learn warrior essentials to become a better leader in your small business. I'm Melinda Emerson, the Small Biz Lady. You're watching the Small Biz Chat podcast, and we will be right back. Are you ready to become a boss? Hi, I'm Melinda Emerson, Small Biz Lady. Click the button below and take my free boss quiz. This assessment will help you learn your entrepreneur type and find the right business model for you. Get this information about the #1 asset in your business. Yeah, that's you. Welcome back to the Small Biz Chat podcast. I'm Melinda Emerson, your host, and I am so excited to talk to our next guest, Zachary Green. He is a serial entrepreneur. He is a veteran. He is a firefighter. He is an international best-selling author, and he's the founder of MN8 LumAware Foxfire, a company he grew from the trunk of his car into a $30 million company in organic sales. He's also the CEO of Warrior Enterprises, L.L.C, and he coaches entrepreneurs around the science of growth that comes from challenge and adversity. He has been featured in numerous publications in Entrepreneur Magazine, and he was named Entrepreneur by the Governor of Ohio, John Kasich. And for more information, you can go to warriorleader.us. Zachary, thank you so much for being on the Small Biz Chat podcast.
Melinda, I can't tell you what an honor it is to be here. I've been a big fan of yours for a while, and I can't believe I'm on your show with such incredible, distinguished guests like Laurie and Rebecca. So thank you.
Oh gosh, listen, you're a big deal too. Don't say yourself short. Okay. All right. Now I want you to tell us your origin story. How did you start your first business?
Well, it goes all the way back to kindergarten. I always knew I was different. I always knew I wanted to be an entrepreneur. The problem is my teachers didn't appreciate my differences. They called it ADHD when you're in school. And I went to 7 different schools from grade school or preschool to high school. Now it's funny because they call it multitasking when you get out of school. And they're like, oh, this guy's a great multitasker. He's got great energy and everything. So I always loved our country, always had a deep appreciation for the Marine Corps. I joined the Marine Corps right out of high school while I was still in college. And it was really, really difficult. And one of the things I realized going through boot camp and officer candidate school was the kids that really had it rough growing up, the ones that grew in the coal mines of West Virginia with dirt floors, or the projects of Philadelphia, or the slums of New Orleans, they thought boot camp was great. They got a nice, comfortable bed. They got 3 meals a day. And I'm like, where's my mom? I miss my mommy because I was so spoiled. My mom literally laid my clothes out for me my senior year of high school. So this was a shock. And that started me this concept of this warrior transformation. What makes a warrior a warrior? And it's iron sharpens iron. It's going through those challenges and that diversity to give you that rhino skin. And I got out of the Marine Corps in 1999, And a couple of years later, September 11th happened. And I felt tremendously guilty that I turned my back on my brothers and sisters and I wasn't serving anymore. At this time, I was climbing up the corporate ladder at Eli Lilly. I was doing brand development and marketing for billion-dollar brands, really learning a lot about sales and distribution. So I joined our local fire department and became a volunteer firefighter, and I got lost in a fire. It was a horrifying experience, total blackout, disorientation. And I wanted to invent a product that would help other firefighters see each other in the dark. And I developed this glow-in-the-dark material, started selling it out of the trunk of my car, made like $5,000 in 6 months. Eventually went to a trade show, and in 3 days at the trade show, we booked $100,000 in sales. The problem is the we was me, myself, and I. I had no more money because I just spent all of it. I had no way to produce those orders, and I figured it out. I refinanced my house, maxed out my credit cards, took loans out, eventually worked with a venture capital firm, and was able to grow the company to where it is today. But boy, it was not a pretty sight. It was a lot of downs along those ups, and it was a real whirlwind. And I just learned so much through this process.
Now, I know a lot about your personal story, Zach, but I want you to walk us through sort of like, what happened when your business really started growing. Like you had those problems of, oh no, how am I going to fill these orders? Then you got pretty big. And what happened to you as a course of running your business when all that stuff started going on?
Yeah, so there's two things. First of all, never confuse revenue with profit. I was just mentoring a guy today that makes hot sauce, and he made like $25,000 profit last year, and now he wants to get his product in every store. And I'm like, yeah, you're going to make $300,000 or $400,000, and your profit margin will probably shrink down to single digits, and that may not be the right thing. The other thing is the skill set to start a company is drastically different than the skill set to run a company. Most entrepreneurs and founders fail because they don't get out of the way, because they don't realize that the innovation and the visionary that you need to start a company, to get investors on board, to excitement, is not the same skill set to run a company that's moving. My concept of the warrior journey, and we see this, and by the way, a warrior is not necessarily a Navy SEAL or Marine. It's a single mom working 2 jobs, trying to hold everything together to get their kids to go to a good school. A warrior is that person that works in the Starbucks because they can't afford an office and they're, using every last penny they got into their business. Warriors are people that are engaged in struggle and conflict and grow from it. And the warrior journey eventually will have a crucible. And the crucible is that crisis in your life that everything that you've prepared for up to that point is not enough. It could be a drug or alcohol problem. It could be an abusive relationship, or in my case, it was a business failure. And in that crucible, at the bottom of the crucible is the abyss. And the abyss is where darkness and death and sometimes even suicide lies. The longer you stare into that abyss, as the great philosopher Nietzsche said, eventually the abyss will stare back. And if you don't get out of that soon enough, it's almost impossible to get out of it. My abyss was the fact that I was selling so much product, but we weren't focusing on cash flow. And again, being the ignorant visionary, not listening to my CFO who's like, slow the sales down, because there's this cash conversion cycle. And that's the time it takes for you to spend money to get profit. Just because you sold a product doesn't mean you're getting paid. You still have to get paid. Sometimes they extend payment terms. Sometimes they don't pay you at all. Sometimes you got to sue to get paid. And in our case, we had these massive deals that were 30, 40, 60-day terms. And I go on vacation. I get a call from my CFO, and he says, Zach, I'm sorry. And I'd listened to Laurie earlier that she said, can the CEO on vacation? I hadn't been on a vacation in 5 years. This is my first vacation. I'm like, I'm checking off. This is going to be great. 3 days into the vacation, I get a call from my CFO saying that we're 3 days away from bankruptcy. We're going to have to liquidate the company. I would have lost my house. I owed over 180 grand to American Express. I would have had to declare bankruptcy. My wife, that was a very successful OBGYN when we started the business, stopped working because the business was doing so well. We were in trouble, and I had a panic attack. I thought it was a heart attack, but it was my body's way of saying, hey, it ain't working. You got to make a change. And what happened for me is, to get through your crucible, You have to conquer what got you there, and you have to transform and change. My transformation was resigning as CEO from my company, from my baby that I created, that I grew, that I nurtured, firing most of my leadership team that were my dear friends and people that helped me along this journey, bringing in a new CEO and giving him the rights to roll the company. And by doing that, we went from literally a couple $1 million a year in revenue to almost within months, $10 million plus a year in revenue. And then I, as the founder, focused being more of the visionary, more of the spokesman, more of the name and the face of the company. And I told him, I said, the two things I want, I don't want to know who's getting hired and fired, and I don't want to know how much money's in the bank. I want to just focus on what I do best.
Well, you know what? I just want to applaud you, because it takes a lot of doggone courage to do something like that. I mean, really, to recognize your own human limitations and say, you know what? It's not worth me trying to kill myself learning this on the job. Let me bring in another professional and step over to what I really do best. And I think there's a lot of business owners out here. I'm so grateful that you just told that story, because I think there's a lot of people who are out here having panic attacks, and they still having them because they weren't smart enough to get help, to get professional, to use their accountant as a business advisor, like to listen to their attorneys. Like, these people are trying to help you. But sometimes, I think sometimes as business owners, we had to fight so hard to grow our businesses that we think we're right. You know what I mean? Like, and it's like, and it's hard. It's hard when you get humbled in a situation, and then you have to look at yourself and realize that who's always at the scene of the crime? You, right? So you have to step aside. And I just want to applaud you, because that took a lot. I can't even imagine what it went through to see somebody else sitting in your big chair in your old office. I mean, that had to be tough. But wow, look at how much you benefited from doing that. Now, when you decided to turn things over and bring in a CEO, how did you do that? Like, how did you search for somebody? And how much did you tell them about how much trouble you were in when you were searching for them?
Well, I think they kind of knew, and that's, both the curse and the blessing of having investors and other people on your board is sometimes they can see things differently than you. The analogy was used earlier by Laurie about this being your baby. It is. And I'm sorry, you cannot disconnect the fact that if you're a founder, that's your baby, and it will be your baby. And to compare it as a parent, you've got a kid that's really messed up, and everyone else can see that your kid is abusing drugs or doing bad things or something, but he's your baby. You can't see anything that's wrong with them. And eventually you have to give your baby up to maybe to college or to kick him out of the house or do whatever. And it's the most difficult thing that you could ever do. But at the end of the day, the way that kid is going to get saved is for you to step away and allow somebody else and them to take their wings and fly. And a lot of business owners will never do that. And, we've all heard the numbers of like 80, 90% of businesses fail in 10 years. I would venture that the main reason that happens is because of the founder doing something and not allowing that succession plan to come out.
I would 100% agree with you. Businesses go out of business because people don't fail to plan. And people don't plan to fail, they fail to plan. And then they forget to keep planning. That's one of the biggest things I tell people. It's like, look, when is the last time you really looked at your business strategically and not being in reactionary mode, but being in strategy mode, like thinking about what you want to have happen in your business versus letting your business sort of like happen to you, right? Now,
how many companies in 2020 thought that everything would be the same 2021 and 2022?
Right.
Hello, COVID, things changed a little bit, right? Now I'll tell you, we did the best business we ever did in the history of our company the year of COVID, because we were able to pivot very fast and adapt. But there's a lot of other companies that never made it out.
Oh, absolutely. There was a whole bunch of companies that got caught flat-footed completely. So didn't know how to sell online, didn't have an email list, didn't have really good systems, didn't know how to use technology effectively. I mean, it just took the knees out from up under so many people. Now, I know that out of all of this that you've learned, you created another business, right? Warrior Enterprises, LLC. Tell us about how you went from, transitioning into a different role in your company to deciding that you wanted to coach and mentor other entrepreneurs.
I think it's amazing if you read Greek mythology or old stuff, even biblical type stuff, that they all have the same characters in that journey. You always have a hero. You have kind of like the love of the hero. You've got the support of the hero. But in almost every one of these journeys, you have a guide. You have that person that's coaching the hero, the Socrates, the Plato that's saying, do this or do that. I've been the hero in this journey for a long time. Now, the good thing about being the hero is you get all the awards and you get all the accolades and all that stuff. But the other thing is you get a lot of scars, and you get stabbed in the front, you get stabbed in the back, and it hurts. And what I told people is the best analogy I had in my business is nothing feels better than a nice warm bath. But if half the bath is boiling water and the other half is freezing cold and you get into it, it's not comfortable. That's what entrepreneurship is. It's the highest of highs, but that doesn't balance out the lowest of lows. And so what I want to do is I want to be now the guide in the story. I don't want to be the hero anymore. I want to show the hero how to avoid those arrows that are coming at them, how to take the right path, how to do the things that I did right and not do the things that I did wrong. And that really is where my passion is now, because my joy, and I'm working with several companies right now, ranging from very small startups to very significant size corporate Fortune 500 type companies. When they win, we both win. When I win, it's just me. And there's just something, I don't know if it's that I'm a parent now or whatever else, but there's so much a better feeling when you can coach somebody to be successful than just do it all yourself.
I totally agree with that. I mean, I remember when I made my transition to being the small biz lady, 13 years ago, don't tell anybody. But I mean, it was different when I went from just making it about me versus making it about my mission. Everything got more clear to me when I did that. So I can completely appreciate that. Now, I know that you say that there are 3 questions that every entrepreneur should ask themselves. What are they?
Yeah, it's real simple. So the first one is, have you solved a problem in a unique and elegant way? At the end of the day, you're not selling features and benefit, you're solving problems. And some of the best entrepreneurs are the ones that solve problems that you didn't even know you had. Okay, the second one is you have to have an unfair competitive business advantage. Not illegal, not ethical, but unfair. We're very small. You can, quantity becomes a quality when you're talking about money and you're talking about people. We don't have that option. And I go back to one of my favorite stories of all time of David and Goliath. David beat Goliath not because he was stronger. He beat him because A, he didn't do what Goliath said to do, and B, he used his strengths against Goliath's weaknesses. His unfair advantage was his speed and his tenacity. So that's the other thing that I tell people is you gotta really have now what is an unfair advantage? Well, I'll tell you right now, it ain't a patent, because most small businesses spend so much time focused on the patent, they don't realize that it's not worth the paper it's written on unless you have probably 7 figures to defend the patent.
Exactly.
And just because you got a great lawyer and you defend it, all the judge got to do is wake up on the wrong side of the bed and check this box instead of that box. Not only did you just lose all that money, you're paying the money for that other company. And by the way, the person probably violating your patent has a whole freaking office full of attorneys that are on salary that will just grind you down. Spend that money on advertisement, on SEO, and on those other things. The third and most important one is you got to have kick-ass sales, marketing, distribution. I mean, it's got to be awesome. It doesn't matter how good your product is. It matters how good your branding and your marketing is. Freaking bottled water. It's hundreds of billions of dollars. It's free. It's water, but it's marketed and it's branded and it's distributed by, guess who are the 2 main ones that have water? Coca-Cola and Pepsi.
That's right.
The pet rock. You guys remember that back in the 70s and 80s? It's a freaking rock. It made millions of dollars because it was in a cool little box, and they had commercials about have your rock play with your friend's rock. The Snuggie, dumbest idea ever, $1 billion brand because they had great marketing and distribution. So if you can answer all three of those, I don't care what your performance look like. I don't care what your finances look like. Show me those. I'll build a team around that to make you successful. But if you can't answer those three, there ain't much we can do to help you other than try to figure out how to answer those three.
All right, Zach, that is some really good advice. And when we come right back on the SmallBizChat podcast, we're going to hear more from Zach Green about what you need to do to grow your business leadership. I'm Melinda Emerson, the Small Biz Lady. You're watching the SmallBizChat podcast, and we'll be right back. Hi, I'm Melinda Emerson, Small Biz Lady, and I want to welcome you to Small Biz Lady University. Our mission here is to end small business failure. So all of the courses here are about two things: how to become your own boss or how to make money online. So that's what we do here. So whether you want to learn about email marketing and sales funnels, or you're ready to get started with social media selling, or if you're really just getting started with e-commerce, you might want to jump into our How to Sell and Market Online course. Either way, if you want to learn how to become your own boss and do it well, I have everything you need here at smallbizladyuniversity.com. If you have any questions or have any technical problems getting signed up, just email us at support@melindaemerson.com. Take care. Welcome back to the Small Biz Chat podcast. I'm with my guest, serial entrepreneur Zachary Green, and he's been talking to us about how to be a warrior entrepreneur. Zach, all right, you were on fire. I hated to stop you and take a commercial, but why do you think it's important for adversity, for every entrepreneur to face a little bit of adversity?
So I had this incredible honor a couple of years ago. I got selected personally by President Obama to be one of 10 people to represent the United States at the Global Entrepreneur Summit. We had 40 countries represented with 10 entrepreneurs from 40 countries. On our panel, we had Mark Zuckerberg, we had Travis Kalanick, we had the founder of Uber and all these things. And their question came out was that exact question that you just asked, Melinda. And why does it have to be so darn difficult early on? And every one of them said universally, it needs to be that difficult when you're working out of your garage work because it's only going to get harder. As the great philosopher Biggie Smalls once said, mo money, mo problems. And I'm telling you, man, it is so spot on. In business, you just keep adding zeros onto your problems. So as these guys were talking about the struggles of just making payroll when they had 2 or 3 people, and then he's like, imagine when I got $3 billion of revenue and what we're doing here. But in that struggle is where you grow that rhino skin. And that struggle is where the warrior starts to train. And it's interesting, when I was in Marine boot camp, which is arguably the hardest boot camp there is, not just probably in the US, probably anywhere, every week, it got harder and harder of the training, but it felt easier and easier. And the reason why is because it was so difficult those first early weeks that you started to get used to this, getting up at 4:30 in the morning, working out, getting yelled at, getting harassed, and all this other type of stuff. It's the same thing. There are no shortcuts. It's going to be hard. It's going to be difficult. Now, why do you think that people as business leaders need to transform and change in order for their businesses to grow? You are the business and the people that you work with. So the people that you start with are not the people you're going to finish with. When you start a business, you don't have money, but what you do is you have energy. And so you're going to get a lot of people with a lot of passion, but aren't a lot of talent. And how do you know that? Because they'd be working for companies that pay a hell of a lot more than you can pay them if they had the talent, all right? But they love your idea. They're following your why. But as you start to move up, there's this concept of regression to the mean, which everybody starts to regress to what the average is. If you're the smartest person in the room, you're in the wrong room. I know I've done a good job when I walk into my board meetings and I'm the dumbest, most least qualified person in the room. I'm like, yes, then I know that I've got something going on good there. So that's the first thing is you got to evolve and change, and you're going to get better and stronger, but you're going to have to constantly swap out the bench and start moving those C players and bringing in B players and A players and other type ones that you can afford, because they're going to bring with them a wealth of resources and knowledge. The one thing that you can never, ever compromise on, though, is the values of the company. And that's really the goal of the founder, is to make sure that the values are intact. because as things grow, you'll start to lose your values. And that's the one thing that when I do interview people that are working for me, I'm the last person to interview them. And all I'm looking for is fit and making sure that there's somebody that I would enjoy working with and they're not going to ruin me. Because you can take someone that's highly talented that doesn't match your values. They will ruin things very, very quickly.
I couldn't agree more. You know, it's almost like how everyone used to say that culture eats strategy for breakfast. And I think fit will fit and alignment of values will ruin a business or grow a business depending on how well you hire. All right, last question. What is the best business advice anyone's ever given you?
It's real simple. It's easy to quit. It's hard to win. It's easy to give up when things get tough. That's easy. All you got to do is say, I'm done. But if you're going to stick it out and you want to remortgage your house to keep the company alive and fire your friend and go through all that other stuff, that's the hard stuff. But, to the victor goes the spoils. And I think the greatest piece of writing ever meant, and I'm not going to take the time to say it, but please Google the poem Man in the Arena by Teddy Roosevelt. That poem should be the Bible of all entrepreneurs. And it basically talks about, if you're in the arena, at least the fact that you tried, and even though you're scarred and you're battled and you're bloody, you've at least done something. Not the people that sat in the cubicle farm that you used to work with that told you you're an idiot for leaving the big cushy company to go off on their own. Because even if you fail, you at least dared greatly and you experienced something that they never knew how to experience because they didn't have your courage.
I love it. I love it. Zachary, thank you so much for being here. I think we have all learned a great deal from you. And I just appreciate so many things about you. Thank you so much. I don't want you to go far, but hang on. But we are going to take a break. You're watching the Small Biz Chat podcast, and we will be right back. Are you ready to become a boss? Hi, I'm Melinda Emerson, Small Biz Lady. Click the button below and take my free boss quiz. This assessment will help you learn your entrepreneur type and find the right business model for you. Get this information about the #1 asset in your business. Yeah, that's you. Welcome back to the Small Biz Chat podcast. Now it's time for me to introduce my guest, Rebecca Monet. She's the CEO and Chief Scientist of Zoracle Profiles. She's fascinated with neuroscience and human performance as it relates to business success. Zoracle Profiles offers a suite of customizable psychometric assessments for brokers and franchisors. Zoracle Spot On. It's meta-analysis that provides insight on a singular profile survey algorithm or as any assessment can. Zoracle Spot On determines franchisee-franchisor compatibility and predicts performance. Zoracle's tool provides brokers a means to engage with and align buyers with businesses wherein they have the greatest likelihood of success. Her website is zoracleprofiles.com. Rebecca, thank you so much for being here.
Oh my gosh, I'm so excited to have a conversation with you, Melinda.
Well, listen, you know everything about franchises and everything about how to be successful as a franchisee. So I want to dive in. So tell me, why do you think that franchising is a good business idea versus just, I got this idea, let me start it from scratch?
Well, first of all, franchising is a growth strategy, and it really works for numerous reasons. One of which, of course, is franchising is a proven system that a franchisee embraces and leverages to build their own business in their own marketplace. Secondly, franchising is all about brand recognition. So instead of creating your own business, having to do all the marketing and creating the brand yourself, now you have a brand that is an umbrella to you that already has some recognition out in the marketplace. Thirdly, I should say, there's a lower failure risk in franchising than if you start your own business. In fact, the failure rate for entrepreneurship is way higher than anyone would like. In fact, that's your mission, is to prevent a lot of that, and franchising is a solution to it. So another great benefit of franchising is now you have other franchisees you're working with, and you can have group buying power, whatever that is, whether it is French fries or printers or whatever it is. You have this group buying power that you're not going to have if you have your own business. There's also consistently greater profits as a franchisee than if you're starting your own business. And of course, less risk because others have gone before you. They've proven the concept, it's working. You're stepping in and you're embracing and you're leveraging what others have already learned and are already doing. And then the final, to me, benefit of getting involved in franchising is the financing. Finding financing for a franchise is much easier than if you come up with a wild hair idea, decide to be a franchisee, and now you're trying to get funding for your idea. Bankers, lenders, SBA are very welcoming to anyone that is a franchisee.
Now, tell me about how you gained all this knowledge. Like, how did you get into the franchise world?
So it's kind of a God-led process, in my opinion. I was actually a therapist, and my entire practice was working with entrepreneurs, was working with business owners. My job was to discover what was preventing someone from growing a successful business, from going to that next level. What was it here in the gray matter that might prevent that? So that was my fascination. And then one kind of day, one of my clients said, Rebecca, all these things that you are teaching me as it relates to, you know, kind of getting out of my comfort zone, going to that next level, can you teach this to a larger group, not just one-to-one? And so he put together 300 entrepreneurs in a room. And it was the first time I got to speak in public. You know, obviously I was a nervous wreck, but it was like I had done it 1,000 times. I mean, it just went out. It just was a beautiful introduction to the world of public speaking. And then from that, I started traveling all over the world talking about the cycles of success and what prevents that from a values conflict, a belief system, you know, inconsistency strategies that weren't working. And then one day, as a single parent, I had a couple of teenagers, and I was traveling so much, and I had one of my teenagers that I needed to have my eyes on a little more often than what I was. And so I knew I had to stop all this travel. And so I went to bed one night and I said, God, what next? I can't travel like this anymore. And I woke up the next morning with 2 words, and it was business broker. And at that time, we're talking 1993, I had no idea what a business broker is. I know Laurie probably does, but I sure didn't. And so I looked it up in the yellow pages. Those yellow pages were on top of the refrigerator. It was a real thick book in San Diego. And I found 3 business brokers, called each one of them. And I said, you're going to think I'm crazy, but God told me to call you. I want to learn everything that you do. You don't have to pay me, you know, just I'll follow you on, I work, I'll do whatever. Anyway, long story short, one of those brokers was a franchise broker. In fact, he created the industry of franchise brokering, and now it's quite popular, but back then he was the first to do just that. And he introduced me to franchising. I introduced him to the world of psychographics and human behavior and what causes some people to succeed and what causes some people to fail. And I fell in love with the franchising model.
Wow, that is an incredible story that I actually had never heard you tell before. So in all that you know about franchising, what do people need to know before they jump in, right? Because it's not for everybody either.
I agree. Franchising, entrepreneurship in general is not for everyone. So the thing I would suggest when you are considering franchising and you begin to look at various franchise concepts is first, you must make sure that you are in alignment with the values of that franchise organization. If you're in alignment with those values, you're going to have common ground, you're going to make similar decisions, you're going to be more harmonious, and you're going to stay longer when you have similar kind of mindset from a values perspective. The next thing you want to consider is where is that franchisor in terms of their stage of growth? There are 5 predictable stages of growth every business goes through, including franchisors. And you want to know where they are, because you're going to fit in one and you're not going to fit in another. Some of us, like me, kind of wild, crazy entrepreneur, I fit really well in an early stage franchise system that's still dynamic and there's not as many rules. And others fit when a franchisor is more further along, where they basically just embrace and leverage what we call a plug and play organization. You also want to make sure you're a cultural fit. We've all had experiences in jobs or situations where it wasn't the company, it wasn't us. It just wasn't a good cultural fit. We couldn't get on board with the way they did business, their best practices, the methodologies, the environment. It just wasn't a good fit. So you want to understand the culture of an organization and if you're a good fit. And then, of course, you want to make sure that your personality, or what I call a work style, is consistent with what high-performing franchisees within that franchise concept, what their personalities are. So you need to look like and behave similar to what high performers within a franchise organization. And finally, of course, is the one that we always think about, which is core competencies. Are your core competencies, your skills, complementary to the franchisor and their strategies and their value package and the way that they do business? Do you bring to the table the kind of business acumen that's necessary to be successful in the business? And each of those need to be there to determine if a franchisor is a good fit and if you're a good fit for franchising.
So there's a lot that you just said there, but I want to unpack it just a little bit and say, well, how many different kinds of franchise opportunities are there?
You'd be surprised. I mean, there's new franchisors coming on every single day. In the US alone, we have somewhere between 4,500 and 5,000 different types of franchises that a franchisee or prospective franchisee could take a look at. That's a lot to kind of sift through to decide what's right for you.
Well, let's talk about the money though. So do you got to be 3 million liquid, like to buy into a franchise? You got to be able to buy 3 McDonald's instead of one. How does it work if you want to buy into a franchise?
The money part, Melinda, varies depending on what the franchise is. If it's a home-based, man in the van kind of business, then you can get in sometimes for as low as $25,000. If it's a retail space where you have to do a build out and the brand is a highly recognizable brand, like you mentioned with McDonald's, now you're going to spend in the millions to get there. So there's a franchise for any budget that someone has.
Now, what about the people you need to help you do this? Like you do need a franchise attorney, right? Your cousin that's an attorney isn't the right attorney, right?
I agree. I agree. I think when you're pondering the idea of going into business, especially into franchising, you should have on board an advisor, both a good CPA and a franchise attorney. And I'm going to suggest a franchise attorney because they understand the business model. They understand the contracts. They understand this relationship between the brand and you as an independent owner. So find a franchise attorney that can help you along the way, and an accountant that also understands the business model.
Now, I know I've often heard and seen advertisements for franchises where they say, no experience required, we're going to teach you everything. I mean, Rebecca, is that legit? Like, is it, I mean, if you have no business experience at all, do you have any business buying into a franchise?
You know, you got to have some business acumen. There's no doubt. But the kind of the tagline of franchising is you're in business for yourself, but you're not in business by yourself. So unlike a raw or real entrepreneur where you kind of have to know everything, right? You have to come up with the idea, you have to sell, you have to market, you got to manage people, you got to be strong in operations. In franchising, you don't have to have as much broad spectrum skills or as much experience as if you're thinking of going out on your own to be an entrepreneur. And then again, it depends on which business you're going in, right? Some businesses, some franchises require that you're an incredible sales and marketing person. Other businesses are more management business or operational businesses, or businesses where you need to be a good leader of a team, right? So you want to pick a business that you have transferable skills from other careers or situations you've been in where you can transfer those skills into a business. But it is definitely a business model that you don't necessarily have to be great at everything, because a franchisor is going to be complementary to you. They're going to offload some of the responsibility through their marketing, through their systems, and through their processes to help you succeed. That's their job, is to help you succeed.
All right. Now, do you suggest calling several franchisees and talking to them before making your final decision to sign on the dotted line?
I do. I recommend, as you start in the process of considering franchising, that you have another advisor come alongside of you, and that's a good franchise broker. These franchise brokers can help you look through that 4,500 different franchise concept, and using tools like what we offer at Zoracle Profiles, help you narrow down the concepts where you are a good fit. You share the values, you fit in a stage of growth, you fit in the culture, you have the right skills, you have the right personality. They'll be able to narrow down those options. So I always recommend that you get a broker to come alongside of you, and the broker will tell you, as you're talking to various franchisors, to speak with a handful of franchisees in each of the concepts that you are researching. The franchisees can give you great insight as to would they do this again, and what support are they getting, and what's the greatest difficulty that they've had. So yes, I recommend everyone considering franchise ownership talk to other franchisees to get their feedback.
All right, last question, Rebecca. What is the best business advice you've ever gotten?
You know, as an entrepreneur myself, I'm an inventor, I'm a scientist. I love to solve problems using psychographics, using technology. So someone can throw me a problem and I go, okay, how can we solve this problem using technology and using science? And because I'm a natural inventor, I was frequently reinventing the wheel. I was frequently customizing our software and doing things that way. So the best advice I got was from franchising itself and one of my early investors in a company that I sold in 2012. And franchising is all about replicating and scaling, replicating and scaling. So I began to look at my business as what can I replicate and what can I scale? And that in turn means what can I do to have reoccurring revenue where I'm not thinking wham, bam, I got to get another client. What can I do to replicate, scale, and create reoccurring revenue? Not only does it stabilize the business, but it makes it a more sellable business when I'm ready to exit that business.
Love it. Love it. Well, thank you so much, Rebecca, for being here. I want you to just hold it right there because I'm going to bring my other two guests back in so that we can have a really quick round robin panel that I call Hit It and Quit It. So I want to invite Laurie Barkman to come back in and Zach Green. I want you guys to come back in because the three of us are going to talk about some similar things. Now, we just have a quick rule with this panel. Number one, if I ask you a question, you cannot repeat an answer from someone else, and you have to answer in 30 seconds or less. Everybody understand the rules? If you break my rules, you're going to get the cowbell. I don't want to give you that. So here's what we're going to do. The first question I'm going to ask, I'm going to come to you first. Zach, I'm going to come to you second. And Rebecca, I'm going to come to you third. All right. So the first question is, what is your favorite podcast? Laurie, what is your favorite podcast?
There is a podcast that I'm blanking on the name, but I'll talk about it generally. And it's about actually, now I think of it, it's called Second Act. It's the Second Acts, and it's Second Act stories. And I love it because people tell about what's next in their career and their life, and they're very inspirational.
Love it. Love it. All right, Zach, what's your favorite podcast?
Business Wars. It is absolutely fantastic. They have very professionally put together, very well produced, and it goes into all the wars with big companies, famous companies, and it's just fascinating.
Love it. Rebecca, what's your favorite podcast?
I'm a little OCD, so it's Franchise Today, where the interviews are super successful franchisors, franchisees, and franchise executives. I want to hear their story. I'm always curious about people's story.
Love it. Love it. All right. Wonderful. Question 2, Zach, you're going to be first, then you, Rebecca, then you, Laurie. All right. What is your favorite business app? Favorite business app?
No question. I was actually using it on the break in between your guests. It's Fiverr. It's the gig economy. You can literally get a whiteboard explainer video for $5 or $10. I saw other ones from big advertising companies that were $20,000 and $30,000. You can get websites, logos, brochures. It is unbelievable.
Love it. Love it. All right, Rebecca, what's your favorite business app?
Well, there's a few of them out there, but specifically it's an app that allows you to record tiny little messages that then you send through an email. I find that when I use my voice instead of typing someone, especially for busy executives, they're going to open up a 15-minute voice message from me rather than an email saying the exact same thing.
What's the name of the app?
I think it's called JetBot, but I think there's others out there. Yes.
Okay. Love it. All right. Laurie, what's your favorite app?
I really like Otter.ai, like the animal otter. It is a artificial intelligence platform that does text, voice to text transcribing. It's not 100%, but I don't know if there are systems that are 100% yet, but it's pretty good. And I use it for transcribing. You can connect it in with Zoom. So let's say this podcast, right? And after the podcast is done, it creates a transcript. So it's really awesome.
Well, tell me, that's a great one. Now, who did I miss? I think did all three of you told me, all three of you guys told me your apps. Okay. Sorry about that. Let me see. Next question, Rebecca, I'm going to come to you first this time, then Laurie, then Zachary. Tell me, what is your favorite old school marketing tip?
Reputation. right? Reputation and referral relationships. Our entire business is based on resellers and referral partners. So it's guerrilla marketing, which is building relationships and let others do the speaking for us.
Love it. Love it. All right. Laurie, what's your favorite old school marketing tip?
Fish where the fish are.
Love it. I believe in that, especially online. You don't need to be doing five platforms. Do one. Wonderful. And then Zach, what's your favorite old school marketing tip?
Don't sell features and benefits, sell solutions to your clients' problems.
I love it. I love it. Exactly. Sell solutions. People aren't buying stuff. They're solving problems. All right. Last question, guys. And we're going to start with you, Laurie. Then I'm going to go to you, Zach, and then you, Rebecca. What is your favorite business book that you have ever read? Favorite business book that you've ever read?
Talk about old school. This is from my senior year of college. Ken Blanchard was a speaker for a weekend presentation. And as a senior in college, to see him live, it was incredible. And I bought the book series from the 1 Minute Manager. I still have it. I have the series. And I think this one is about building high performing teams.
Love it. Love it. All right, Zach, what's your favorite business book?
I'll go even older school than Laurie and go with Ayn Rand, Atlas Shrugged. It is a very, very long book. It's a very intense read, but it is the Bible of entrepreneurship, capitalism, and what makes America such an exceptional country.
Love it. Love it. All right, Rebecca, what is your favorite business book?
Oh, it's between two, but I think it is another Ken Blanchard book called Lead Like Jesus. No better leader in my mind.
I love it. I love it. I haven't read that one, but you've made me interested in it. My favorite business book is Disrupt You by Jay Samit, because he says if you want to disrupt the world, start by disrupting yourself. Listen, thank you guys so much.
Melinda, I'm sorry. I want to change. My favorite book is Becoming Your Own Boss in 12 Months by Melinda Emerson.
Yes.
Unbelievable book. I highly advise it for anybody that's watching this.
I agree.
Thank you both so much. Listen, I appreciate you guys so much. Laurie Barkman, Zachary Green, check out his book, Warrior Entrepreneur. And thank you to Chief Scientist Rebecca Monet from Zoracle Profiles. If you are interested in a franchise or just want to find out what kind of business might be good for you, head over to bossquiz.com, her product, and you're going to get an opportunity to get a complete business profile to determine the right business opportunity for you. And thank you all for joining me for this episode of the Small Biz Chat podcast. If you're still working on your digital pivot, please check out all of our offerings over at Small Biz Lady University. You deserve to make the money that you need to make online, and we've got all the tools over there to help you with it. And the last thing I want to tell you is I want to leave you with this. You never lose in business. Either you win or you learn. Thank you so much, everybody.